I'm Bob Trask, and this is our weekly reset, where we come together to make sure that every week has within it the beauty and the softness and the grace and the power to allow us to flow into life with our very best selves. Today we're going to talk about something pretty special. We're going to talk about peace. We're in springtime. We're in springtime. In fact, today, for those of you who are watching later on YouTube, today is Easter Sunday. Well, I'm not going to talk about Easter per se. I'm going to talk about springtime. Easter is a celebration of spring, a celebration of fertility, of rebirth. The goddess, Easter goddess Oestre, for which Easter is named, for many, many years before Christianity, and even the Christians picked it up and followed it. That's why Easter is Easter. That's why we have Easter bunnies, symbols of fertility, and eggs, symbols of fertility. The world is fertile, awakening, coming to life right now. The, if you believe in Holy Spirit, if you believe in the great divine consciousness of all things, it's alive and real. And right now it's shouting from the ground with new leaves and greenery and blossoms and flowers, singing. And every tree is an expression of that joy and of that vitality and that beauty. Some people might say, well, there's a darkness in the world. There's an awfulness going on. Yeah, well, there is an awfulness going on. There's a lot of wars. There's some hunger and oppression and stuff going on. And I feel bad about that. I know you feel bad about that. The question is, what can we do about it? And the answer is there is something we can do about it. To begin with, just to begin with, to acknowledge that nature is alive and that which we look at in nature, the trees, the flowers, the deep blue ocean, the stars at night, those things that we look at are expressions of something divine that's real, that's real. And that divinity is in you as you, and it's trying to shout out from you as it shouts out from the soil, as it shouts out from the sea. It's trying to shout out from you, but you and I have covered it over with self-doubt, haven't we? With self-recrimination, sometimes with shame. And so we grow up feeling like we're not quite enough. We don't quite ever measure up. So let me ask you a question. So if you're taking some vitamins and you reach over and take the lid off the vitamin jar and you reach then to shake the vitamins out of the jar and you knock the jar over and the vitamins spill everywhere. They go all over the table and all over the floor. At that instant, what do you feel? At that instant, what do you feel? Do you feel, damn, I am so clumsy? Do you feel a little bit like validated inside of you that you are a goofball? Just a little validation. And that hurts. And it makes you angry at yourself. Just a little bit, just for a little bit when that tips over, or maybe it lasts and it's there when you're cleaning it up. But see here is that if you look back now and you're a tiny baby, like a day old, little tiny baby laying in a bassinet, are you peace and joy and love? Are you? Yeah, of course you are. Of course you are. Little sweet, cuddly baby, you are just peace and love. Now what happened after that? How come you're not still peace and love? How come when you knocked over that vitamin jar, you just didn't flow with it? How come there was a self-accusation attached to that? And you and I both know that there was an accusation attached to that because you have an inner need to blame yourself. And if you blame yourself, if you go to that inner need and you blame yourself, you validate your self-doubt, your self-recrimination. And if we're going to be peace, and the only way that we can be effective in this world as peacemakers is to be peace, not to become peace, not to seek peace, but to be peace. And we often ask as individuals, what can I do to make my world more sane? What can I do to hasten peace? And the Dalai Lama says, world peace must develop from inner peace. Peace isn't just a mere absence of violence, he said. Peace is, I think, the manifestation of human compassion. And human compassion starts with my compassion for myself. If I'm blaming myself, then I also will be blaming others. I cannot afford to do that because there's no peace that comes from that. I have to be in acceptance and forgiveness. So if you wonder if you can make a difference, then I have a question for you. Do you vote? Even though part of you thinks that it won't matter whether you vote or not? Are you still part of that body that's making a difference? That body of good thinking people who go an extra mile so there's a chance for peace and harmony to exist in our human family? Then yes, of course you vote. So today we're talking about a new kind of voting, aren't we? We're talking about going into space, the space around us, not the space out there the other way from the planet, the space around us that's made of peace. That space around you right now, wherever you're sitting, it's not empty. It's full of grace. It is grace. With every breath, you're breathing in grace. A fish is in the water and it's breathing through its oxygen, through its gills. It's breathing water and it's breathing out CO2 and it's breathing in oxygen. We're breathing in grace and breathing out CO2. We're breathing in oxygen and breathing out CO2. We're all breathing grace. Today, we're going to talk more about creating peace by becoming peace. Mildred Lizette Norman, this beautiful woman that was called the Peace Pilgrim, walked more than 25,000 miles. That's 40,000 kilometers for peace. Can you imagine that? Boy, I have a hard time imagining it, that 25,000 miles. She said, my inner peace remains in spite of any outward thing. Can we say that? Only insofar as I remain in harmony can I draw others into harmony. There's world peace right there. Remaining in harmony to draw others into harmony. She said, and so much more harmony is needed before the world can find peace. So she's saying, hey guys, do your job. It's not just up to me, do your job. And you know what? It's a lot easier than you think it might be. All we have to do is change some of our ways of thinking in order for that to happen. Because you see, peace isn't somewhere we end up. Peace is the journey itself. Martin Luther King Jr. said, peace is not merely a distant goal that we seek, but a means by which we arrive at that goal. And A.J. Muste said, there is no way to peace. Peace is the way. So if peace is the path through that dark, tangled forest of our mistrust and competition and self-doubt, if that's the path, if peace is the path, then what do we use for a compass? Because part of us is in the darkness of those forests. So how will we keep peace on track? How will we create world peace? By putting down our own arms in our own lives, by putting down the needs to be right, the need to speak and not to listen, the need to be seen as brilliant by our closest friends and family. Put all that aside and be peace, like that little baby in the crib. What compass will keep us on the right track and keep us moving forward toward peace this spring? When those tangled forests are inside of us, they weaken our ability to make a difference with our lives or the lives of others. Then we need to face and acknowledge the presence of those tangles and then move through them step by step. I want to tell you a quick story. I was guiding a group of people. Uh, I remember there's probably 8 people. And I was guiding them up this steep mountain in Canada, the wilderness of Canada. We were going through a rainforest and it was raining and it was cold and we were wet. And we finally, and we were tired. We came out into a little meadow, small meadow, just a small meadow. There was a big log in the middle of the meadow. And when we came into the meadow, a big grizzly bear was standing on that log, ripping pieces off of it, looking for grubs, I think. And the bear lumbered off into the forest. And we went and sat down by that log. And everybody got out a sandwich or apple, and we sat and talked for a few minutes. And then I said, "Okay, time to move on." And the forest was so thick around us, around that meadow, that you couldn't possibly see how to get through there. So all sitting on the ground, they looked around and some said, "How in the hell are we going to get through this? How do you get through that? That's so tangled and tight and we can't get through there." And I said, "Oh boy, today is the greatest lesson of all. Come with me." And we all walked over to the edge of the forest. And I said, "Can you step through and take one step?" Everybody took one step. "Can you take another step?" Everybody took another step. I said, "You see how you get through the tangles is step by step. It always opens up when you face it. When you sit on the log, it's not going to open up. You have to go face it. You have to go get into it and change your attitude about it and about the forest and about ourselves. It's worth changing our attitudes about ourselves and others. It's worth the risk to see how much beautiful self-truth is lying out there just beyond those tangles. And it's a lot easier when we acknowledge that those needs to compete, those needs to be right are based on false identifications, not who we truly are. False identifications of being unworthy, of being not enough. And those judgments were written on the walls of our ego minds, our ego subconscious minds years and years ago. They were never valid then, and they're not valid now. You are perfect exactly now. You don't need to change. Please don't change. I don't want you to change. This talk is not about you changing. Don't change. You are precious and perfect exactly the way you are. All I want is for the deepest truth of you to wake up, just to wake up. And when it does, you'll see that no one else can be you. People might try, but they can't do it. Only you can. And that makes you precious. I was I was singing in a bar in San Diego, and it came to time to take a break, and I took a break, and the piano player just kept playing. And the owner of the club stopped by the stage and he said, "John, you can stop playing now. You can stop auditioning. You got the job." And everybody laughed. But it struck me that he said that. That was years ago, and I still remember it. And I want to tell you today, you can stop auditioning. You already got the job. You can stop auditioning for the job of being the delightful and wonderful you. You got the job because you are you. You're amazing. You're a thrill to know, and you're a thrill to be with. And you bring a gift to this world that no one else can. But who really knows that unless you're true to that magnificent you? False identities are what the current wars are made of, aren't they? Ego battles for the dominance over others because I don't feel like I'm enough by myself. No honest or truthful person, no honest or truthful nation is true to themselves or true to itself and still need to rise above someone else. And besides, it's impossible to rise above someone else because there is no above. We're all different. There's a little country in Central America that you know, its name is Costa Rica. And Costa Rica is bordered on both sides by nations that have standing armies and go to war. And Costa Rica doesn't have a standing army. They don't put their money into defense. They put it into education and medical care and social responsibility. So you would think that those countries on other sides of them would attack them, invade them, take over their country. But here's the big question, the really big question. Why would they want to? Why would anyone want to take over America, for instance? Why would anybody want to take on Canada? They can have the resources through free trade. We have trade going on all over the world. They don't need to go in and pick up the burdens of those countries. No one's going to invade. No one's going to take you over. Now Russia's invaded Ukraine and they're trying to take it over because they think it was anciently part of Russia and they want it back. China's doing the same thing with Taiwan and some of the other countries. But those are exceptions. We don't have to individually worry about somebody taking us over or being better than us or upstaging us because they can't, they don't want to, and they can't. We need to little by little, get rid of those blocks and those attitudes. John Kennedy said, peace is a daily, weekly, monthly process, gradually changing opinions, slowly eroding old barriers, quietly building new structures. So maybe you'll ask me, well, how do you know those old identities aren't true? Those old identities of them not enough and I don't know, I'm not worthy and I should be bowing and scraping and I should be apologizing. How do you know you're not enough already? How do you know those old identities aren't true? After all, you've been living with them your whole life, so who's to say they're not true, not accurate? Then I ask you to look at your life right now. Are you as abundant in health, in relationships, in money, in peace of mind, the spiritual fulfillment as you'd like to be? If not, why not? So knowing that we're not the self-identity scribbled on the walls of our egos, then let's get a bucket of suds and scrub them off. That's the suds of truth, the suds of facing the forest and taking a step into that tangle and seeing that it's not insolvable, that we can in fact walk through that and get out the other side. Let's scrub those scribbled identities off the walls of our egos. And then when the walls dry and the old wounds and wars are over and heal, then let's write in nice, neat script who we really are. Those are called positive affirmations. Like, I am peace and love. Imagine saying that. I am peace and love. Is that true? Or is it almost true? Or would you like for it to be true? And if it's not solidly true, then maybe it needs to be repeated a few hundred times a day. I am peace and love. I am peace and love. I am peace and love. Maybe a few hundred times a day until it begins to sink in and the light shines through the darkness of that forest. Another affirmation would be, I am the expression of peace and love. That's who you are, an expression? Yes, that's who you are, an expression of Holy Spirit, an expression of the great divine, of the great beloved, of the great consciousness of all time and space. You are an incarnation. You are a wave on that ocean. You are the expression of peace and love. What if you said that? I am the expression of peace and love. I am the expression of peace and love. And what if you said that a few hundred times a day and for maybe a month until it finally became true for you so that you could say it without there being a wrinkle in the blanket, so that it's all ironed out nice and smooth and it's true for you? Because there never has been and there never will be another you. And you're probably tired of hearing me say that, but I guess I'm going to continue here saying it, and you're going to continue hearing it until we all get it. No one else has your talent, and yet neither have you theirs. We're each gifted in our own individual ways. Now, one of us might say yes, but in my case, I'm constrained by my education, by emotional things or physical things, and I'm somehow crippled. Well, then reflect the light coming from others until it becomes your light. Edith Wharton reminds us that there are two ways of spreading the light: to be the candle or the mirror that reflects it. Here are some of those who've helped create peace in the world and did so even with personal impairments that might have stopped many of us. They went ahead because their desire for peace was greater than their fear. Walt Disney was dyslexic, yet he had uplifted and still uplifts millions of lives through his gentle expression of peace. You know that he holds the record for the most Academy Awards by an individual? He got 22 wins and 59 nominations. Harriet Tubman, who helped hundreds of black slaves escape through the Underground Railway. When she was 14 years old, she was hit in the head by a slave master, and it caused her to develop epilepsy. And she lived with epileptic seizures and excessive sleepiness for the rest of her life. Helen Keller was the first deaf blind person to earn a bachelor's degree of arts, and she was amazing. She helped found the American Civil Liberties Union. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, was dyslexic, and both his wife and his mother were deaf. And his discovery of the telephone led to the creation of the hearing aid. Albert Einstein was autistic, and yet he won the Nobel Prize in Physics. Beethoven became deaf when he was 30 years old and continued writing and conducting music for another 11 years. Thomas Edison had scarlet fever, and from that he was deaf in one ear and could barely hear out of the other. Yet he invented the light bulb, the phonograph, the motion picture camera, and he changed our world. Franklin Roosevelt was crippled by polio and confined to a wheelchair, and yet he was the longest serving US president in history, elected 4 times. And while serving, he guided America out of the Great Depression, created the first public relief programs, and led America through the Second World War. Stephen Hawking, paralyzed with Lou Gehrig's disease, had to talk through a computer. Theoretical physicist and was awarded the U.S. Presidential Medal of Freedom and the Pride of Britain Award. There are none of us, I say none of us, who don't have some disabilities of some kind. But what if in this springtime you could plant a few flowers of peace in the hearts of others just by being there for them as the real you? So that when we leave this planet on our last breath, we'll say, I brought peace to my place my place in the human family by trusting my heart's outreach of love and making a difference. So today's talk this spring can be of the birth of peace is not about making peace, but of being peace. And there are two simple ways you and I can begin making this happen. Number one, accept and forgive. Everything that's bugging me is from the past. Everything. My fears are all of the future, and my doubts, my regrets, my resentments are all of the past. Accepting and forgiving means that the past is settled. It's done. I accept it and I forgive. I'm getting my emotions out of the way. I don't need for it to be different. I accept it the way it is and the way it's not. And I I quell the fears of the future by bringing alive the wisdom and the power within me that is joy and peace and love. I get all my doubts out of the way. I plant those seeds and I let them grow up through the garden of my soil. And if there's a lot of fertilizer there, they grow up through the fertilizer and it even helps them. So don't worry about that crap in your life. Let it fertilize the soil and go ahead and bring the flowers of who you are into the sunshine this spring. And the second way we do that is to become active in sharing your kindness, not my kindness, your smile, your sweet words. You passing someone on the street and saying, you look good today. You going into a restaurant and walking around to some of the tables and saying, how are you folks doing today? I'm just glad to be here with you. How are you folks doing today? It's nice for me to be here with you. What happens to them? They go, what just happened? But a little candle got lit in their hearts. Can you do that? Can you get yourself out of the way and do that? Yes, if you stop doubting yourself, if you stop pretending you're less than who you are. And finally, Morihei Ueshiba said the art of peace function everywhere on earth, in realms ranging from the vastness of space down to the tiniest plants and animals. The life force is all pervasive and its strength boundless. The art of peace allows us to perceive and to tap into that tremendous reserve of universal energy. Finally, I want to talk to you a little bit about a workshop that's coming up starting on the 4th or the 5th, depending on which one you can be in. They're both in the morning. One starts at 11:30, one starts at 11. One starts at 10, and they're an hour and a half. And this 6-week course is going to be using the text of the book I wrote, Romancing the Soul, which is about the Trask Triangle and about so much more. This is going to be really a deep, powerful course based in joy and designed to help you absolutely get rid of all those self-doubts and get rid of that stuff that keeps you from totally shining in your light. You can go on my website, bobtrask.com, and find that. And while you're there, make a donation, will you, if this talk today has touched you? Secondly, I'd like to tell you that my book, that I've been working on for years, is finally in print. Up She Falls. Incredible story of a woman coming into the light. A, a powerful story filled with light and love and some real danger, some sinister people, and how she has to deal with those with her new consciousness. So I hope you'll buy that book. I hope you'll go to our website and find that link and come and join us for class. Thank you for being with me today. I love you, and I send you wishes for a happy, happy spring day wherever you are, whatever time of year it is for you, wherever you are. Let there be spring in your heart. Now, if you can hang around for another half hour, there's some of us that are going to have a little discussion about peace and about love and about who we are in the world. If you have to go, I understand. Go with my love, and I'll see you next week.